say present are here. Sharon Smith.
Here.
Henry Stroud.
Here.
Karen Swirsky.
Here.
Andrea Bro.
Here.
Greg Bryant.
Here.
Liza Hamada. I saw Liza on earlier. I don't know if she's like. Oh, I see.
I'm here.
Joe Viola.
Present.
Brian Potwin.
Here.
Peter Russell.
I'm here.
Rick Root.
Here.
Rick Williams.
Here.
Casey Berg.
Here.
All right. And the staff, I believe Andrea Napoli is on.
I'm here.
Then I can't see everybody, but I know earlier other folks that I saw on here, Bruce Abernathy, are you still on?
Yes.
And then Toby Marks.
Here.
Dee Dee Fraley.
Here.
Gary Vauden. And Wendy Holzman. Did I miss anyone? All right, we'll move on then. I think you've seen these. These are just our meeting guidelines. Hilby usually walks through these. I don't know that we don't have anybody on the phone, do we? Juan or Will?
We do not.
All right. So if you have questions while we're moving along, just please use the raise hand function. I know we have at least two or three members of the public listening in today. Does anyone from the public have any comments they'd like to share with the TAC before we get started?
Did you want to review the meeting guidelines?
I skipped through them. All right. Next item, agenda item 4 is our meeting summary. Looking for review and approval of the draft September 2nd, 2020 draft meeting summary. Yeah, can we get a motion?
I move approval of the September 2020 meeting summary as presented.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item 5 is a proposed amendment to the 2021 to 2024 Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program. I don't think Hobie is on yet, so I will just briefly walk through this. This is our capital improvement program that's maintained by the MPO. The program currently includes an improvement to the US 20 Ward Hamby Road intersection. There'd be construction of a roundabout out at that intersection on the east edge of the MPO. That project was programmed for, I believe construction was originally programmed in 2022. This amendment would add almost $1 million from ODOT's Region 4 Fix-It program and advance construction to this next year, 2021. Does anybody have any questions about that project? If not, could I get a motion to approve it and a recommended approval to the policy board?
So moved.
Was that Rick?
Yes.
I'll second.
Was that Henry?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, thank you.
How does that somehow be doing?
All right.
That was
Andrea, would you like to start this slide, start this discussion?
Yep. Thank you, Tyler. So the purpose of this agenda item is to have an initial, very informal review of the projects that have applied for STBG funds using our new application process that we developed earlier this year. So applicants that submitted project applications by the October 30th deadline have the opportunity to present their projects to the TAC. We've asked applicants to please limit their presentations to about 10 minutes, so 5 minutes for the actual project with another 5 minutes for questions and feedback from the TAC. Please remember that we'll conduct a full application review and ranking by the TAC at the December TAC meeting. So here, this slide shows our timeline. So as a refresher, so September 1st, we started project solicitation. October 30th, the application period closed. Today, November 4th, we have an informal review of the projects. The little bullet point there simply notes that as a result of this meeting, if applicants want to submit any minor changes, we ask that those please be to MPO staff no later than next Friday so that we have time enough to prepare for the next TAC meeting. And again, December 2nd, the next TAC meeting, that is where the TAC will review the individual applications, evaluate the projects, and we hope to make a funding recommendation to the policy board, a TAC funding recommendation. At the December 15th policy board meeting, we are asking applicants if they could please again present their presentations to the policy board. We will coordinate with you on that. And at that meeting, we believe that the policy board would be awarding funds at that time. And after that, once we have funded projects, we will be amending them into our existing 2021-2024 TIP. Next slide.
Andrea, quick question. What time does the policy board meet on December 15th? Do you know?
They usually meet at noon. Am I correct, Tyler, for the December 15th meeting? That's at noon?
That's correct.
That's good. Thank you.
Yep. Next slide, Tyler. So here we have a list of all applicants and applications that we have received. This will be the order of the project presentation. So we'll have COIC go first, then Parks and Rec, followed by City of Bend, and then City of Bend in coordination with Bend Lapine Schools. This slide gives a summary of the project applications received, who submitted the application, and then the funding for each application that has been requested, along with any match dollars and any dollars coming from other sources. The very bottom line there shows the funds that are available from the MPO, and then just above that shows the funding requests received. Okay, next. All right, so with that, let's see, Andrea, you want to go ahead and start?
All right, thank you. My name is Andrea Bro, and I manage Cascades East Transit, the Central Oregon transit provider here. And so we went ahead with what's called a Mobility Hub Development Application. Next slide. All right. So for those involved in public transit, the major theme that came out of our 2040 master plan that hit home here in the city of Bend was Hawthorne Station. We recognize that it is at capacity with regards to safety, street space, conflicting modes. We've got pedestrians, cyclists, passenger vehicles, and all of our shuttles, as well as what we call intercity providers. Hawthorne Station is not just a hub for our buses, but buses that come in from as far east as Ontario, Grants Pass, Eugene, Salem, Portland, etc. If you haven't been living in a cave, you know that there is some desire for us to move out of that location or find a solution in the interim to relieve capacity. In conjunction with that movement, the Bend TSP has outlined that moving away from a hub and spoke model and moving towards a more multi-centric model will improve the experience of transit, reduce transfers, fill in some gaps regarding the first and last mile connections. So that's kind of why we went for this. So a hub is an area where all of those multimodal transportation features come together, you know, like bike sharing, loading and unloading of passengers, whether that's your Ubers and Lyfts, connecting to pedestrian paths, bike paths, and then the future of EV stations. Then I mentioned, you know, why the hubs are beneficial to us. Number one reason, it is going to relieve congestion off of our current site there at 3rd and Hawthorne. We're going to increase those options for kind of the last connectivity of a transit user. We're hoping that the hubs are more attractive to choice users. Right now, we have a very transit-dependent population, and we are already starting to plan our operations to move away from a hub and spoke and a little bit more of like a grid network. Next slide. All right. So we found out this morning that the transportation bond did pass, and there is some funding set aside for us for mobility hubs. However, it is a 30-year plan, I believe, bond, and those funds will not come to us immediately. So these are kind of our best options to address the concerns in the immediate. So we're going to be leveraging this application with what we call a stiff discretionary application, which was due at the same time. And STIF, for a reminder, stands for the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. And we went ahead and applied for funds as well. And then just to kind of recap again where this idea came from, it's in both our master plan, the TSP, and soon to be the MTP. Next slide. All right. Apologize for the small font there for the funding. But essentially, this outlines the 21 to 24 period for those funding cycles. What we'll be asking for, the local funds we will set aside, and the STIF discretionary as well as the STIF formula that really helps us get the most bang for our buck. Property is not cheap here in Bend. We are not a transit district. These are our only options to receive funds to purchase property. And allow us to move forward with this concept of mobility hubs. Again, we're hoping with this funding that we can start this much sooner than later and create some secondary hubs within the next probably 4 to 6 years. Our outcomes, again, were for less transfers of the system, more efficient use of the entire transit network. And I think, Andrea, is that the last of my slides? I think so. Yep.
Yes,
So
it is.
that's kind of a giant overview of everything that we're thinking of. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Andrea, this is Greg. And the question I got is, do you have an estimate of how much when we get these hubs? Do you have an estimate of how that is going to reduce the throughput going through Hawthorne? Is there any estimate like you guys came up with?
We're hoping with the first hub, we're going to see a reduction of about 40% of our shuttles coming into that area. So a relief of about 40% of our services getting
Right.
off the existing system. Yes.
Okay, that's very significant. That's good.
Yep.
And then also you got the land purchases. Have you guys got any estimate since you got an amount there? Do you have any locations yet, or is that still in the process?
So we have, and we're hoping with, design and architecture and property analysis that we'll have an expert help us out in this area. But we are still 2 areas of interest right now that will serve the best transit experience in terms of efficiency is somewhere within the Core Pine area. So basically just south of downtown. And we've already modeled a lot of our services going directly there, reducing the transfers to the southeast or southwest. But we're also still looking at some areas within the central business district. And so with the density of the area, both in employment and in population, some area within Hawthorne still makes sense for us to be there in some type of capacity.
Exactly.
So we've, kind of looked here and there at certain properties. We're also talking to ODOT on some potential properties they have in kind of relieving some of the fleet storage and seeing if they're willing to partner and help us out in that respect as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Andrea, this is Peter. Do you have a sense of what an average footprint for one of these would be size-wise, and also how many that you might be looking at in the system for your mobility hubs?
Sure. So at its bare minimum, which we're willing to take, basically we were looking at a platform that would hold 3 of our largest vehicles. And so we are looking at maybe half an acre. I'm just speaking very high level, somewhere where we've got, your canopy, your awning, some ADA compliant sidewalks, and have the buses be able to pull in and out very quickly. And it connect to some type of existing sidewalk or multi-use path. So at its bare minimum, that's what we're looking at. We had the Redmond Hub developed in 2018. Just to give you an idea on cost, overall, that entire project cost about $1.4 million. And that was light industrial zoning area between Fred Meyer and Lowe's. But it's a different animal here in the city of Bend.
And Peter, this is Karen Swirsky. To your second question, the TSP modeled 5 mobility hubs. I think the CET plan has more than that, but that's the minimum. 1 in each quadrant and 1 in the central area.
Yes.
Thank you.
Andrea, it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly, you're requesting money in all 4 fiscal years. And looking at fiscal years 22 through 24, it's $150,000 in each year. And you mentioned that there are some alternative funding sources like the STIF, and then you guys are putting in some local funds. Is there any sort of strategy to pursue additional funds that might reduce the burden of the ask on the STBG funds? Because just looking at that, it seems like a fairly high proportion of what's available for other projects during those fiscal years.
Yeah, absolutely. And so right now, obviously, we are solely based through federal grants, state grants, and a little bit of local funding. We are going to be putting a good chunk of our weight on STIF formula and STIF discretionary. However, we were advantageous in this ask to basically jumpstart this program because capital dollars come in slowly. And we figured this is the only way we could acquire property and be serious towards this type of project. But I would say the weight is going to be on STIF formula.
Thank you.
Hey, Andrea, Rick Williams. Kind of an opinion question for you. Do you view the mobility hubs as critical to the short-term and long-term success of CET going forward?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I will be brutally honest. We are just limping along, maintaining status quo. At this point during COVID-19, we are transporting those folks that need to use transit to get to work, are disabled, very transit dependent population. If we are to succeed in terms of congestion, mode shift, etc., I am not attracting choice users right now. And this is the only way we can make sense of a more modern system.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Andrea? All right, then I will move on to we'll move to the next presentation. So you are up, Henry.
That's good. And will you go to my first slide, please?
Yes.
That's good. Well, good morning, everybody, and members of the committee. Thanks for giving us the time here to present to you today. My name's Henry Stroud. I'm a trail planner for the Bend Park and Recreation District, and I'm here to detail our request for a project on the Central Oregon Historic Canal Trail, and we're calling this our Crossing Safety Improvement Project. Next slide. So in Bend, by the Park District's latest count, we have more than 90 trail road crossings on our trail system. Many of these are unimproved, and they create these really unfortunate gaps in our trail network that are only navigable by the most confident trail users. So they create these high stress areas that are very hard linkages for inexperienced or maybe younger trail users to get across. On the Central Oregon Historic Canal Trail, so on the core of the trail between Brookswood Boulevard and 27th Street, and I'll show you guys a map of this in just a minute, we have 10 trail road crossings along the planned alignment. As of today, only 6 of those 10 have some sort of crossing infrastructure or signage or marking to signalize that it is a crossing. The remaining have no safety enhancements whatsoever. So the goal of this project is to install safety enhancements on 3 of those remaining road crossings along the Central Oregon Historic Canal Trail. And our goal is to bring the level of infrastructure at those crossings up to a point where it meets ADA guidelines and as well follows as much of the AASHTO trail design standards as possible. And so the money that we're requesting $64,000 or $64,218 for construction in fiscal year 2021. We do intend to use the ODOT Fund Exchange program, so we haven't shown a match in our project budget. However, we do have $100,000 allocated in our CIP for this fiscal year just for these type of projects, and we can use that to pay for any overages or portions of the project that aren't covered by a potential grant award. So the big question, why are we doing this project? Essentially it boils down to this project really strongly supports goals, not only in our comprehensive plan, but as well as the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and in Bend's new TSP. And I'm just going to paraphrase quickly, but in the TSP, we have a goal, it's goal number 47, and it says that the city requires enhanced crosswalks at key intervals to complete the walking and bicycling networks, including school and trail crossings. And then we have a policy in the MTP in collaboration with the City of Bend. The MPO will require enhanced crosswalks at key intervals to complete the walking and bicycling networks, including school and trail crossings. So we feel like that this project very strongly supports those goals and is in the spirit of all 3 of our comprehensive plans. Next slide, please. So I realize this may be a little hard to see if you are looking on a small screen, so I will describe it to you. This is the main portion of the Central Oregon Historic Canal Trail as it runs through Southeast Bend. Just to the left of the map, which you can't see, is the trail actually connects to the Deschutes River Trail down by the South Canyon Bridge. And the blue lines are the existing portions of trail, and the dashed yellow lines are the planned segments. So we have a fairly significant gap in between Reed Market Road and the future Alpenglow Park site, but we're actively working on trying to make that happen. And then the yellow crosses and the boxes with the blue circles are the existing crossings. So the blue circles represent an under crossing where we have a grade separated crossing, and then each one of the yellow crosses is where the trail crosses a road at grade. And then the three intersections specifically that we're looking to improve as part of this project are called out. So starting on the left, we have Blakely Road. This is a 2-lane local collector road that's currently unimproved. We have Brosterhous Road, which is a 3-lane collector. Sorry, Blakely is a local road. Brosterhous is a 3-lane collector. And then we have Ferguson Road, which is a 2-lane collector. Next slide, please. So this, I've just added a little bit more information onto the map. The red lines that you see are the low stress network that is identified in the city's new TSP. And this is a series of both on-street bicycle facilities and separated trails that the city has planned in addition to the trails that we have planned in our comprehensive plan. And each one of these crossings is located on that low stress network. Next slide. And then just to highlight some previous investment that's gone in already for crossing safety on this trail. In 2018, the Park District built an undercrossing of Brookswood Boulevard. So in conjunction with the piping project with COID, we were able to put a trail underpass there. And then in 2020, the city, a pretty significant investment, close to $500,000 on improving 2 crossings along the trail. The first is at 3rd Street. This is a pretty infrastructure heavy crossing with rapid flashing beacons, pedestrian activated rapid flashing beacons, a huge improvement in connectivity on the trail already. And then in conjunction with the Park District, we did a cost sharing agreement, and the city of Bend, as part of their 15th Street road reconstruction project, installed a crossing along the canal just south of Chloe Lane. Next slide, please. So just to finish up really quickly, I'm going to show you guys what the existing conditions are and what we plan on doing. So here's Blakely Road. This is the 2-lane local road. The existing trail crossing is unmarked by either signage or crosswalk markings. Next slide, please. And you can see that this, due to the vertical curvature of the road, it's depending on what direction you're coming from, it can be a very hard crossing to nose there. Really, there's no indication. So for this site, we're proposing installing crosswalk markings as well as warning signage on the roadway, including advanced warning signage for vehicles to identify that this is a ped and bike crossing. Next slide. So this is Brosterhous Road. This one, we're taking a little bit of a different approach. Currently, the trail crosses Brosterhous. Again, this is a 3-lane, heavily trafficked road. This is the intersection of 3rd Street and Brosterhous is just to the left of the frame of this picture. And we routinely see stacking at the intersection that goes across the existing location where the ditch rider and where the existing trail crossing is. I've witnessed several close calls out there myself, and it's definitely one that's on our radar to improve. If you go to the next slide. So here you can see I'm standing on the trail, and in this location, our approach is to try to direct trail users to the existing signalized crossing at Brosterhous and 3rd Street. To do that, we are going to be doing a combination of things. We're proposing building new trail connections from either side of the trail that would connect back to the back of the existing curb and sidewalk that you can see in the picture, as well as installing signage, fencing, and gates that would help further direct trail users to cross at that location. So this one, it's fairly extensive. There's not a lot of intensive stuff, but really it's just surface treatments and some minor cosmetic improvements to push people towards the existing intersection. Next slide. And then lastly, this is Ferguson Road. I, for whatever reason, could not find my picture of this, so we shamelessly stole one from Google. But this is a 2-lane road. It's a little higher ADT than the other 2-lane road that we showed, Blakely. This is a collector road currently, and Karen could probably answer this, but I think the new TSP might have upped the classification for Ferguson, so this may be an arterial in the future. That said, we're anticipating with the growth of the southeast area for traffic on this road to continue to increase. So the treatment that we're proposing here currently is similar to the treatment at Blakely Avenue. We'll be installing signage, so signage at the crossing as well as advanced warning signage for vehicles to identify this as a crossing, as well as installing in this location illumination. So we'd be putting in a new traffic light on the east side, or sorry, a new street light on the east side of the road, and then installing continental crosswalk markings as well. And with that, I will open it up if there's any questions.
Just to clarify, Henry, this is Karen. We changed it from a major collector to a minor arterial. That's Ferguson.
Minor arterial, okay.
Yeah.
And also, this is Greg. I'll confirm Blakely and Brosterhous. I ran that about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and yeah, those could be helped quite a bit. So that's a good point.
Hey, Henry, Rick Williams. You mentioned this at the beginning, but the funding request is towards construction. But do you have individual estimates for those crossings? The reason I'm asking, I had a similar project down in Klamath Falls on State Park's OC&E Trail, where we did 3 crossings of local roads. And I will admit, we were using state standards in doing that, but between illumination, signing, advanced signing, truncated domes and bollards, these were about $300,000 a pop.
Right.
I know you guys can maybe do it for less, but do you have a total price tag you're looking at for these 3 crossings?
We do. And let me give you a little bit of background on that. So the crossing designs were done by HWA with the local engineering firm in town. They originally gave us cost estimates when we completed the first round of the designs in 2018, which were in line with the updated cost estimates that we did internally for construction. So we do think that the majority of the construction can be covered by our ask of $64,000. And I know that seems low. We felt like we were being fairly conservative in our estimates, actually. But there's not a lot of work actually being proposed. At Blakely, for example, we have existing driveway ramps that are there, and we're going to saw cut some of that concrete and add the truncated warning domes and make some minor grade adjustments for ADA. But then really we're looking at a couple of signs in the continental, the thermoplastic crosswalk markings. At Brosterhous, a lot of the work is fence installation, as well as creating new gravel trail connections, which we can do. We've got pretty confident cost estimates of that. Ferguson, I think, is the one where we may have the most variability from our estimate because of the addition of that street light. Again, we felt like we were being conservative, but we do have money in our capital budget up to $100,000 to cover any overages. So we're feeling fairly confident of our cost estimates at this point, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Henry? All right. Thank you, Henry.
It's good. Thank you.
Next up, we have the application for the Bend Bike Share Program. And I believe, Toby, are you going to be leading this discussion for these slides?
Yes.
All right. I will. There you go.
Good. Okay, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. This is actually a really exciting opportunity to present to you and submit this funding request for you. Especially with COVID-19, we had some challenges maintaining a bike share program in the city of Bend. And in the background, we have worked on towards a pilot for more micromobility, shared micromobility options in the future. And so this is a very exciting time to actually for us to put this funding request forward. Next slide, please. To give you the history a little bit, for the last 4 years, Dexter has operated 55 bikes as a bike share in the city of Bend. This was a docked system with locations in downtown and along the west side. That meant that you could take a bike from one station to the other and travel between those stations. You could travel throughout the entire city, but also had to return it back to one of the stations. Zexter discontinued operations in Bend and 4 other Oregon communities, as well as nationwide, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which put our bike share program on hold. Next slide, please. So the high level overview here is that we want to develop a citywide bike share network that's based on a dockless model, where bikes can ride from end to end across this city and have to be returned in designated areas, designated in any public bike rack or in future micromobility hubs. The idea here is to create a shared micromobility program that puts control of our transportation future and appropriates uses of our public right-of-way into our own hands. And more context as it relates to micromobility options and not like everything. That would be great, but we won't have that yet. And to also interconnect a growing city with bike share as a reasonable mode of transportation. Next slide, please. So why do we want to do this now? Knowing that there's a pandemic going on, why do we want to do this now with so many other things going on? And I think this is a very great opportunity because we currently would have access to be able to get free bikes out of a bike program in Portland has been discontinued. In addition to that, ODOT is launching an effort to create a statewide nonprofit that tentatively will be called Cascadia Mobility to operate bike shares and other micromobility option or programs with participating communities. So there is the potential of a statewide nonprofit operator to actually operate this program for us. This fits well into a long-term vision to grow micromobility options as part of the transportation system plan. It's also has a little bit of synergy with the planned mobility hubs, with a lot of other changes and plans that are going on. We also feel that this can really make the post-pandemic world healthier, cleaner, and offer a more equitable and transportation option, and also achieve climate goals by hopefully through a bike share or micromobility program in the future, really transition to more first and last mile trips onto bikes and other devices and take people out of cars, and also to promote and support travel options that allow for social distancing. And there's some interesting case studies how that has helped in some other cities. Next slide, please. So how we will do it. So the idea is to utilize these grant funds to purchase equipment, rebrand bikes, fund program planning and outreach. And we have requested $365,000 over the 4-year period, that are pretty much split up about $60,000 the first year, $150,000 in the second, a little bit higher in the third and the fourth year. And the idea here is that using those funds to get the bikes, adjust the hardware to be operated for us in our city, and then partner with Cascadia Mobility to operate the bike share. We will then fund the operation of the program through user fees, sponsorships, and local public funds. The advantage by partnering with Cascadia Mobility and the new statewide nonprofit would be that there would be one organization operating in multiple cities, sharing workload, sharing operating like background, and through that like create a lot of operating efficiencies that can help us actually be successful in operating the program long term. With the ongoing annual funding through this grant, we would be able to actually grow the number of bikes the system needs each year to provide adequate access for all of Bend. To really try to look at this, how can we interconnect more dense new population developments where maybe in the future developer will build for a more carless tenant, and have this as a real good option to connect them to the activity hubs in our community. Next slide, please. So to give you a high-level overview, that the goal would be that if we would be able to secure this funding, we would secure between 55 and 100 bikes out of Portland, which we would get for free. We would refurbish these and rebrand these bikes, restore, and with that, restore the previous established network that we have and that we have experience with through Zexter, and then work on a partnership with Cascadia Mobility to start operating that. In the second year, we would use the funds to expand to a citywide network. So where in the first year, we would use the existing network. Year one, we really would focus on expanding that citywide. In the third year, 23, we would then hope to have the fleet expanded to at least 200 devices, update the hardware, because by that time we probably need to. And then in the last year of this funding cycle, we would expand the fleet more, update the hardware, and hopefully add new devices, including e-bikes. And interesting wise, as you know, we're in our budget cycle at the City of Bend now as well, starting that very shortly. The Transportation and Mobility Department, if we can secure this funding, will then work towards seeing if we can include funding to for the operation within our budget as well. We are planning currently to do the ODOT, take advantage of the ODOT, I forgot the word right now, I'm sorry. I'm have a busy morning, but we do not have a local match for it from our end. We have a promise from OSU Cascades to match with about $2,500 annually. And we hope that we can secure more funding on our transportation mobility budget for the next biennial budget if we can secure this funding. And with that, next slide, please. I know that was quick. I know that was very high level, but what questions do you have?
Toby, it's Rick Road. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Sort of, I think it's a good project. Unrelated to it, but related is, are the existing bikes out there going to be picked up? Because there's one damaged on Galveston.
I'll make sure they will be picked up. We have a little bit of a hard time getting a hold of Zexter, and they have a mediator company, mainly their leasing company, where they lease the bikes from. So we can see that we can reach out.
Sure. I wasn't sure if that was the City of Bend or the OSU or Community Options or what. Who's responsible?
Right. Good question. We're trying to figure all that out. But we have a contact with the leasing company that owns the bikes now, so I will reach out. Casey might know a little bit more too.
Thank you.
Tobias, this is Greg Bryant. Just wondering, prior to the pandemic, do you have an idea what the usage was of the current bike system that we had?
Yep.
How many bikes?
Yep, good question. So we had 55 bikes in use across 7 locations. Since 2016, so Zexter launched on September 15th, 2016. And during the time leading up to March of this year, the pandemic, we had a total of about 11,146 trips. The medium trip duration was 23 minutes, and we had a user count of 5,473. So I don't have the breakdown from the last year, but what we do know is that 2017 over 16, we had a very big increase, 18 again too, then 19 went down a little bit, but it held very steady. And this is a seasonal thing. So we definitely could see a seasonal peak once our tourist season peaked. So and we definitely could see that weekends were stronger than during the week.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Peter. I had a question where you're funding the program through user fees, sponsorships, and local public funds. Do you have any dollar amount for those or percentages?
Estimations. So we know that the Zexter previously OSU, when they worked on, and Casey might be able to actually answer this a little bit more too, because he was involved with that. So we had about $50,000 that we annually get out of sponsorships. And the user fees, I do not have that exact number right now. But what I do know is that we estimate operation of the bike in the future to cost about between $1,000 and $2,000 a year. And that is, I know that's a very high variance there, but it really depends on our own involvement in the future when we're partnering with that new nonprofit. And so if our goal is to operate 100 bikes, we can either say it costs us about $100,000 to operate it for the year. If we know that we can get a third out of that out of user fees and the remaining funds out of annual sponsorships, I think so about 70,000 split to cover the operations. We feel we can run break even. One way how we can get there is that we haven't really tapped into healthcare providers and that group of stakeholders to participate in this, and this is and fund the program for operation. That is something that has been very successful in other communities because there is a good synergy behind for a healthcare provider to partner with a bike share program or a micromobility provider to use it as an option to encourage their members, their community groups to be more healthy. And that's something that we definitely want to do, where we feel we can at least run break even, if not even more.
And Toby, if I can jump in, I think this is an important project. Just to add to what you've all said, as a lot of you know, I've worked to grow the bike share program over 4 years here through OSU Cascades. Here on our campus, we'd love to see this continue. Our students got a lot of good use out of it. We're just at a point financially that we can't really lead this. So I really appreciate Toby and the city stepping up to do this through the new mobility program and department they're forming there. I would just add that the important thing here is that we're growing to a citywide network. We only had 55 bikes in, really, we'll call it West Side Bend, Old Mill, downtown, and kind of Galveston Avenue. So this opportunity really gives us a chance to expand to the city and the east side and get everybody connected. And then we see a lot of synergy with the mobility hubs that CET is working towards, and now the MPO is working on with the TGM grant. So
I have a question, Toby, and Karen, maybe you can help to answer this. So I know wouldn't be something that immediate funding, but the line item in the transportation bond for mobility hubs, have you looked at if any of that could be used for bike share in the future?
So this is Karen Swirsky. The assumption behind the line item that's in the TSP for mobility hubs is around infrastructure. So it would be for things like sidewalk access and whatever else the grant tells us that we need. I don't believe it's been anticipated that we could be used for actual implementation of the bicycle or other last mile traveled facilities, but that's probably a good discussion to have.
Okay. And with that, I know we're over our 10 minutes, so I wanted to see if there were any other questions for Toby. Okay, Tyler, do you want to move on to the next? Robin, I believe you're on for these presentations. Is that right?
Didi was going to do the Brosterhous one, and I'm not sure, is she on? Didi's on.
I'm here.
So Didi, why don't you go ahead and do the first one?
Awesome. Hi, my name's Didi Fraley. I'm a project manager in the Engineering and Infrastructure Planning Department at the city. So I manage some capital improvement projects. And one of them that I'm working on right now is the Southeast Brosterhous roadway for sidewalk and to hopefully get an undercrossing at the railroad there on Brosterhous. So next slide. So here's a pretty good picture of what the connectivity and availability for pedestrians and bicycles have for the existing undercrossing at the railroad along Brosterhous. So it's a 2-lane I believe it's a collector, so sorry. It's a 35 miles per hour, averaging 5,000 ADT, and it's expected to increase because just past this photo is they're currently building the high school, South Caldera High School, at off of 15th and not. As you can see, there's no sidewalk, no bike lanes. We just installed a crosswalk at Southeast Orchard Grass Place over this past summer, and some sidewalk that basically goes south to this location, to the Pines Mobile Home Park, to their driveway. And obviously the reason why we're doing this project is the safety concerns and connectivity to get to the new high school and everything else around this area that's really being developed. Next slide. So this is to kind of paint the picture of everything that's in this area. We have, over 800 or around 800 master plan community off of Country Club and Murphy. There's another couple hundred unit homes. I believe it's called Easton, to the east of 15th Street. We have the high school. The new high school is going to be opening up next fall. The future middle school. We have the community park, Alpenglow Community Park, that's going to be starting construction next spring. And then I believe everyone on this call also knows about the future Southeast area plan that's being developed, which will have more housing and commercial facilities. So as you can see from the circles, there's the new crossing location. And then we're also, with this grant, asking for funding for a school crossing at the new collector, Southeast Caldera Drive. So we're partnering with the school district on this to really get this project out there and visible, because it's such a critical connection to be able to have, whether it's pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, school buses, to get through this area safely, and to get people to the new high school, even people from the south to get north. There's Jewel Elementary School to the north that's highlighted as well. So that's just a critical connection for this area of town. Next slide. So like I said, we've started on the design for this project. So we have a consultant right now that we're working with we're also working with BNSF, as it is their railroad. And they've been working through the design, working through the undercrossing, what are our possibilities. So we've already invested a decent amount of funds for the project to basically get connectivity and sidewalk for pedestrians and bicyclists to get through from where the sidewalk currently ends today by the Pines Mobile Home Park, to bring it down to Southeast Caldera Drive to connect to the new high school location. And we're proposing we have funding for $540,000 with the sidewalk and the design for the undercrossing. So this project is to basically fund construction of the undercrossing with the railroad, and do all that coordination with them. And again, they know our timeline. Our timeline is we are trying to get this constructed by next fall in conjunction with the high school opening. So that's the project. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Dee, it's Rick Root. I'll defer to Greg. Real quick question, I guess. Is the school district willing to partner in the cost?
As of right now, they are not funding it. They will be providing any assistance through a connection between BNSF and the railroad and Southeast Caldera. So we'll be doing another connection to the north, to whether it's through an easement. So it might not be a monetary amount, but they're facilitating coordination of construction.
This is Sharon. I might just weigh in a little bit, if that's okay, on behalf of the school district. yes, we'll probably be providing the right of way or land to make that connection. In terms of monetary funding, as you all probably know, we are only we can only raise capital funds through a bond, and right now we're going to be starting our sites and facilities update next fall, which would lead to kind of a potential ask for a bond in spring 22. So we don't have any capital funds available for this project at this time, but certainly we'll partner with property and coordination and those kinds of things.
Any other questions?
All right, let's move on to the next one then. I think you're up, Robin.
Okay. Thank you, Dee Dee. Yeah, timing of that one is really critical, just trying to get ahead of the school opening. We want to really set that tone for how students get to school and make sure they're safe and not ducking under that really, really tight existing underpass. So the next project that the city is seeking funding from STBG program is Northeast 8th Street. It's a Safe Routes to School program serving both Juniper Elementary and Pilot Butte Middle School. But it also connects communities to a really popular regional park called Holland's Head Park, where there is a dog park. So lots of families cross 8th Street to get to the park as well as to get to school. Next slide. I should have probably introduced myself. Sorry, jumped right in. I'm Robin Lewis. I'm one of the transportation engineers for the city of Bend in the Transportation Mobility Department. So this is a good overview map. It's a little complicated, but it shows in the mint green, that's the school zone for Juniper and Pilot Butte. And you can see an area that is north and west of only Penn and 8th Street there. I've highlighted all of the higher density housing around there. There's a lot of apartments, large apartment complexes that span several acres. There's narrow duplexes, townhomes, and a lot of it is lower income. So there's just a lot of kids in that area. That park right by them is Orchard Park. And you can see straight across that there is Seward, Holland's Head Park off of Seward. And you can see that all of those students, they're all within a mile of the school. And there are no facilities on 8th Street. There's no crosswalks. 8th Street is has more than 12,000 ADT. The speeds are quite high. It's posted 35. Narrow bike lane. It's about a 3.5-foot bike lane. And there's just no sidewalks. There's a kind of a beaten down path that's going on. But as you can see from this slide, free and reduced lunches at Juniper and Pilot Butte are really high. They're among the highest in the district, just a little bit lower than what Edgeworth Elementary School sees. They're in the higher 70s. Orchard Park is used for free and reduced lunch program sites in the summer. Really getting children to that area is important. So we're seeking $32,000 in design and $131,000 in construction.
Oh, that's for gas.
Oh, for gas.
Pardon?
Money upstairs too.
Thank you.
For this crossing, it takes advantage of some existing sidewalk that the Parks District and the City of Bend have partnered on. You can see that in that final photo there. close to the Goodrich New Park site that's just off of Quimby. So that'll create a connection of sidewalk all the way down to the 8th and only traffic signal. So adding this extra piece north of Revere of sidewalk, it helps this school crossing, the crossing for the parks. And just talking to CET right now, they're adding a bus route to 8th Street. And the likely location of these bus stops are right in this vicinity of Seward, where this crossing would go, and the sidewalk. So it really kind of hits 3 important community aspects of transit, school, and park. Do you guys have any questions?
All right, should I move on, Robin?
Yeah, that'd be great. Next slide. So this next one is in partnership with the school district. So I'm going to let Bruce Abernathy present, and then I'll follow up on some of the city aspects of this one.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Bruce Abernathy, and I'm you guys. Sorry about that. So my name is Bruce Abernathy. I'm the grant writer for the Bend MPO School District, and like Robin said, we're going to go ahead and tag team this. Given that we're going to be tag team, I'm actually going to ask you to go to the 3rd slide first, and I want to start with that, sort of providing one more. Thank you. Sorry, the 3rd real slide after the introduction. So this is really another opportunity to take advantage of sort of the project that we just talked about. But this is, again, will benefit Juniper Elementary, which is a school built in the 1960s on sort of the lower flank of Pilot Butte. So you've got significant slump issues, you've got lava, etc. And it's essentially, as Robin pointed out, there are a lot of higher density multifamily units north of Neff Road right now. So we actually have a lot of students who are north of the school and crossing Neff Road. Then how do they get to the school? Typically, what you're looking at right now is sort of this is where they cross Neff, and they get to go up a hill. There are a couple different options. Both of them are unpaved. One of them gets just to the very back with a fence, and the other sort of goes up a very rocky, windy trail. Neither of these are really accessible. Neither of them are really accessible, certainly for younger students in inclement weather. And basically, the school district's increased emphasis on safety, we really would like to try to find and create a safe route that allows students who basically can get to this stage, get them around to the front of the school. You can see here on the slide, there's about a 20-foot elevation difference. And right now, what we're trying to do is figure out a way to how do we maximize that with what is otherwise uneven terrain. This specific project asks for a $50,000 grant for design only, and the school district is willing to provide $5,135 in local match. That's the required match, and we're also willing to provide the right of way for this trail if it takes place. As Robin will talk a little bit about later, in addition to the benefits this provides to our school children, there's significant benefits to the district.
Excuse me, Bruce, you're cutting out.
Do you know when I started cutting out? I apologize. I'll just do the last sentence or so. So this project requests $50,000 a grant. It's for design only. This is something that has actually been in the city and the school district's sort of safe routes to schools sort of repertoire for many years. But until we actually have the hard costs on what it's going to take to construct this, we really can't go forward. So this will get that behind us. This will have the design in place. Very, very high level preliminary estimates are that the construction would be about $350,000, about 800 linear feet of a 6-foot pathway. Can you go back one slide? This is the path. You can see at the very top, students crossing that at Park Ridge, and then the trail would sort of meander around to open at the front of the school. And again, preliminary estimates that this hillside path would look a lot like the path that currently goes through Al Moody Park. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back one more slide and then turn it over to Robin to talk about ways in which this really benefits not only our students, but also meets a couple of the goals in the city's TSP.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, this link is a really critical hole in the city's low-stress bicycling and walking network. Recently adopted through the Transportation System Plan, we planned a series of 13 key routes. This dark blue line that goes across the screen, that is one of the main east-west routes, connects Olney Avenue, Portland Avenue on the west side, but we can't get through that really steep hillside near the 8th Street traffic signal, so we have to go down Norton Avenue, and then we have to get back to Neff because there's no connectivity because of the butte and cul-de-sacs and things like that. So this light blue dashed line through the Juniper School property is really important because it's a link on that east-west broader route. And there is a 22, foot fall that we need to be able to get down. In addition, there's a new neighborhood greenway route on Northeast 12th Street that needs to use this linkage down the hillside, use the crosswalk for the school. We just constructed that portion of 12th north of Neff Road, and the crosswalk of 12th and Greenwood was constructed in 2014 using an RRFB rapid flash beacon. And so the bones are there, but this is definitely a piece of the puzzle that is missing in this middle piece. And if you go back to the photo of Al Moody Park, this is a recent path that the Parks District constructed. Al Moody has a steep fault line through it, and there's a 33-foot rise that they were able to accomplish. It's a well-used path. Here you see a person riding his bike, walking his dog, taking his kid to daycare. So it's definitely one that we feel we can get through this rocky area in a way that's highly usable for anybody walking, biking, and meet ADA accessibility rules. The other thing I wanted to point out was without that route, ADA accessibility really does not exist for any of the students that live north of Neff Road. There's quite an out of direction travel on sidewalk that is not compliant on that north side. And so there's at least one student that she wheels in her wheelchair to the crosswalk for the school, and then the school bus picks her up right at the crosswalk and drives her around the corner to get up to school. So we really want to make sure that this school is welcoming and open to all users, that it meets, the city's key routes as well as our neighborhood greenway network, and then school security get those students to the front of the school rather than the back of the school is really important. So we really like the synergy of this project. Next slide. Next. And our final project.
Question?
Yeah, Robin.
Oh, yes, questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions about that last project.
Yes, I do, Tyler. Robin, this Rick. I'm assuming that trail would be paved.
No, it would be similar to the connection that goes through El Moody. That is the really fine crushed granite.
Sure. ADA accessible. So I
yeah,
guess
it's really accessible.
Due to the grades, can you make ADA requirements for slope or the landings?
Yeah, you need to use landings. It has to have the railings similar to this. But because it's only a 22 foot rise, the grades are going to be really good. There's a nice long straight shot that we think we can ramp down, have landing, ramp down, have landing.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah, it's really important to get this design funded so that the school district can put this information into their sites and facilities debates.
Robin, this is Henry from the Park District. I might just add that we've had fairly good luck with that material recently. There was a period of time where the quarries weren't making the spec that we liked, and so we had some trails that were installed primarily through private developers where we didn't get good compaction, but now they are remaking our preferred spec. And at Al Moody, we actually modified that where we added a little bit of clay. It was in an infield mix from a baseball field into that. So if there are areas where you do have to ramp for a long time, you can get some better compaction on that material by amending it to make it even more ADA friendly. So
that's really good to know. Yeah, that one's held up a lot. I've watched it through winter, come out there in the spring when, it's a little soft, and it does hold up well. There's good traction, and it is firm and stable.
Any other questions for Robin on this project? All right, I'll jump to the next one. Okay, Robin?
Thank you. So this last one is Larkwood. It's a road, it's a local street in Southwest Bend that connects between Murphy Road and Pine Ridge Elementary School. Next slide. That kind of light pink color is the school boundaries for Pine Ridge Elementary. You can see Brookswood moving north and south generally through that. The school is west of Brookswood. But you can see there's quite a few homes and families that live on the east side of Brookswood Boulevard. They have a great crossing at the newish Murphy and Brookswood roundabout. So that crossing gives them a very low level of traffic stress. One, very comfortable for elementary school students, but there's no sidewalk on Larkwood. Typically being a local residential street, that's not a problem, but on this street, it's a huge problem. There's a bend in the street, and you can see from the light shading on that photo on the left, cars hug that curb, and they do it on both sides. It's really interesting. And there's literally no place to stand and feel safe. You could be walking along and it's heavily vegetated, so there's really poor stopping sight distance along this street, and the cars will just brush right past your shoulder. And so consequently, parents are not comfortable allowing their kid to walk to school, even though it's within a quarter mile to a half mile, right from their door to door. So if we can construct this sidewalk, I think it would be really, really important in opening up those opportunities for students to get to school safely. So this project, we're asking for $18,000 for design and $72,000 for construction to construct sidewalk on one side of Larkwood. Do you guys have any questions on this one?
Do you know what the ADT is on Larkwood usually?
I don't have that count. It is higher than a typical local street. I imagine it's closer to 2000 ADT, because just how that neighborhood is established, there's a lot of really circuitous routes through there. It has a school, a park, and people know they're able to turn left onto Brookswood by coming out this way because of the roundabout. And so there's just a lot of funneling that goes on this street. So it's higher than, what we typically see on a local, and it's close to that threshold of being comfortable for shared bike facility.
So it's a local that kind of acts like a minor collector.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter.
How long of a sidewalk would that be? How are you talking about?
It's about, I want to say it's 550 feet long. It's literally a long block. So.
Okay.
Any other questions for Robin about this application? If not.
Thank you guys for the opportunity to present these projects.
Are you doing this one as well, Robin?
Yep.
All right.
So this one, it's a downtown urban project. It's on Wall Street at Idaho. And the next slide I'll show a little bit where it is. It's within the Amity Creek Walking School District walking route. It's right next to the Red Door Church, which is a really important community asset, the family kitchen, a lot of services towards lower income and homeless populations in the city. The Boys and Girls Club is on one corner, the library is close by, and there's really important transit that is one of the highest transit routes in the city. So this one is more of a balance between getting kids to school and getting other residents of Bend where they need to go, particularly those that are economically disadvantaged. There's the next slide. Shows that there's a little bit of a phenomenon that's going on for drivers coming down south out of downtown. They've been constrained within that downtown environment where there's frequent traffic signals, there's head in, back out angle parking, and there's curb extensions, and the lanes are quite narrow. And it's posted 20. And so there's this constraint that the drivers have experienced. And then as soon as they get past the old Deschutes library and approach Idaho Street, things start to open up. On-street parking ends. The lane widths suddenly go to 14 feet wide. And there's no more curb extensions and things like that. And the posted speed goes from 20 to 25, right? It's just enough that drivers are in acceleration mode, and the yielding at this crosswalk is really poor because of that. Parents getting their kids to school call us frequently and mention that no one's stopping for them. And we know that folks who are kind of on that lower income spectrum within our community, they do experience more kind of crash hazards associated with walking around. And so we really looked at this one as a way to increase yielding. So what it would be is just a curb extension. The next picture actually shows it pretty good on the next slide. Just to allow drivers to be a little bit more in closer proximity to the crosswalk, to that ramp, that ADA ramp, reduce that wide road so that we get better yielding. It also creates a really nice kind of plaza in this area right by the Red Door Church. And you can tell it definitely organizes that intersection with Idaho quite a bit. Which it's so wide, there's really no straightforward path of travel through there. But we're really excited that this would increase yielding at that crosswalk, increase that visibility for anyone crossing. We're asking for design money. If you go back a slide, $22,000 and construction of $95,000. Any thoughts or questions on this one?
All right. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, guys.
Andrea, do you want to talk to the next slide?
Yeah, so here we have, if you want to, if you plan on submitting any changes to your application, if you could please get those to us, to staff by the 12th. Again, next TAC meeting is where we will be reviewing the applications, doing a project evaluation based on the criteria that was established, and amongst other things, and put together a funding recommendation for the policy board. At the policy board meeting on the 15th, applicants again are asked to present. Again, we will coordinate with them on that. And at that time, the policy board will be making their funding decision. And that's any questions about next steps?
Andrea, this Rick Root.
Yep.
Question is, will the MPO staff be pre-scoring these before 12/2?
Yes, great question. We will be reviewing, staff will be reviewing applications to make sure that they are complete. We'll be contacting applicants if we need additional information or if anything isn't complete. We will also be putting together sort of a pre-scoring to have the TAC have something to start with. But the actual final scoring document will be, ownership of the TAC. It will be what they all come together on, and that recommendation gets sent to the policy board.
Great. And then real quick question. It says this in the packet. Yep. How much has been submitted? How much is available per year?
So we do have a slide for how much was totally submitted and how, if you want to go back, Tyler, and how much is total available. So we have the total available by all combined years. Some years are a little lower, some years are a little higher. It is in the application information packet if anybody wants to see those specific dollar amounts by year.
So that 773,000 is over a 3-year period. Is it?
That is over. Yeah, so that's for 2021 through 2024.
It's a 4-year period.
Yeah, it's 4 years.
4 years.
4 years. Okay. So divided by 4, or is it increasing?
Some years it's not the same amount each year. And I apologize, we didn't put a slide for that.
Okay, thank you.
So on the second, we're going to be determining how to split this.
Yeah, that's going to be
the 773.
right. So that's going to be an exercise for the TAC as far as ranking, and then please keep in mind applicants if will kind of moving funding around different years, or is it possible to have a little less funding? So this will be an exercise for the TAC to work out in the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll be doing that by years, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
By years?
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions on this agenda topic?
All right. Ready to move on then?
Sure.
All right. Our next agenda item is an update on our progress on phase 2 of updating the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and I will let Andrea start off.
Yeah, so as Tyler mentioned, so we put together a few slides here we want to give the TAC an update on our progress and the status of our MTP version 2 as we are moving along in its development. Go ahead and move to the next slide, Tyler. So to recap here, we adopted MTP version 1 in September 2019. This was a very minimum plan update to meet our federal deadline. With all the planning work still going on at that time, we knew that we would need to do the plan update in a 2-part process. So MTP version 2, which will be a major amendment to version 1, it rolls in information and projects resulting from Bend's recently adopted Bend TSP, Cascades East Transit Master Plan, the new ITS plan, US 97 Parkway plan, and the Transportation Safety Actions Plans for both Bend and Deschutes County. Next slide. So here's the chapter outline for version 1. This was carried over from the previous MTP. Again, only certain elements of the plan were updated for version 1, with notes in the document identifying where updates would be made with version 2. Next slide. So aside from rolling in information from all those planning projects and updates I just mentioned, another undertaking for version 2 was that we wanted to simplify the outline and improve the presentation of the plan. So as you saw in the previous slide, version 1 is 19 chapters and over 300 pages in a standard Word document format. So that's a lot. We would prefer to streamline that. So what we've done so far is we've taken some of the work that we did with the version 1 update. Some of those chapters were updated. And add in a good chunk of the work that was done with the MTP TSP joint update process to create a new outline for the plan, one that's similar to the TSP, but with differences where necessary, since we do have federal requirements to meet in our plan. So on this slide, you'll see this is the chapter outline that we're planning to use for version 2. As we go on the slides here, myself, Tyler, I'm not sure if Hobie's on yet, and Karen, we're going to go over each one of these chapters for you to give you a status update and let you know what elements you'll be seeing in the future as we work to complete version 2. Next slide, Tyler. So here is version 2, chapter 1. So the majority of this was already completed in the 2019 version 1 update. We have a section on the purpose of the MTP that was already done, a section on what the Bend MPO is, was completed, the regulatory framework that we have to work under. And then for the last 2 sections, so the MTP planning process, for example, for the public outreach that was done, the joint public outreach with the TSP and the MTP. That's included, but we need to add in this version 2 amendment process that we're doing. So that then will make that section complete. And then of course with plan organization and content, kind of waiting till the very end to do that, just in case anything changes there. And chapter 2, that's done. The goals and policies that was brought to the TAC, the policy board approved that. So that section is we're already good there. Next slide.
Yeah. Hey, Andrea, I'm here too now.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to pass this on to Hobie and Karen.
Yep. So hello, everyone. Sorry I was late. Too many meetings. So for chapter 3, this is really our evaluation process, how the system is working at the moment and what we can do. So this is all done through the TSP. So the MPO TAC has already reviewed all of this information. It's just putting it into the MPO format. So all those check marks mean that you've seen it in one way or another. It's just coming to us in a different document. And again, the check marks, are either version 1 or it's the TAC has reviewed it through the TSP process. So this chapter will be available for review, but it won't be any new information or additional analysis. So we can go to the next slide. And Karen's got my back if I have anything I miss on here. But this is basically our chapter 4 is turned into almost the existing conditions of each section. So the top, all of these system plan elements have been reviewed in version 1 or in the TSP document. There's some that are specific to the MPO, such as the environmental considerations. Those were updated in version 1, so there aren't any big changes going on there. And as we get this document all together, you'll see we'll be able to bring those slight variations to you, so you can just review that section, that content, instead of the whole chapter. So a lot of data, but not a lot of big changes coming in. So for anyone who wants to review this, we'll be able to help with that. It's coming soon. So we can go ahead and go to the next chapter, which I think is going to be for Tyler to talk about.
Yeah, and so the bulk, I think the biggest part of our work right now is getting chapter 5 updated. That is our transportation projects and programs component of the MTP. The bulk of what we need is already was approved as part of the city's TSP and as part of these other adopted planning projects that Andrea mentioned at the beginning. We need to pull in some projects that are identified that are outside the city, but within the MPO, so county projects. And so those are some projects kind of in that urban-rural interface around the periphery of Bend. So we'll be doing that work. And then chapter 6 is the biggest component of it in terms of updating our funding strategy. A lot of work was put into the TSP, as well as these other documents that we just mentioned, Cascades East Transit's master plan update and the Parkway study. We need to work with our federal partners, so the Federal Transit Administration and the Federal Highway Administration, on making sure that our plan is what's called financially constrained. And so that'll be something we'll be kicking off that work with those two federal agencies hopefully within the next week, so we can get concurrence on how to move forward and make sure that we are compliant with that part of the plan update. That's all I have. You want to talk about chapter 7, Andrea?
Yeah, so chapter 7 is our performance measures chapter. And we updated this chapter in 2019 with version 1 to include the federal performance measures we're required to track and report on. So those relate to safety, highway condition, travel time reliability. And then more recently for version 2 update, we added in the newer transit related performance measures that we coordinate with CET on to track and report. So that chapter is done. Next slide, Tyler. So next step here, obviously we want to finalize the remaining chapters that we have. We will be bringing back to you a review of chapter 5 and 6 once we get those completed. And then we'll be processing version 2 as a major amendment to version 1. That requires a 25-day public comment period. The comments will go back to the TAC and the policy board, with the policy board having a public hearing and deliberation and adoption of that. So with that, any questions on this information item?
Yeah, this is Greg. I was just wondering, where can you find this information now, like where we're at before these adjustments?
Well, we have the version 1 document available on the Bend MPO website.
Okay.
We don't have any of the draft version 2 documents up yet, but as we do get those together, we are planning to post those to our website as well.
Okay.
They're going to look really familiar to you, Greg.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Are there any other questions about where we are in our process over the next couple of months? All right, in the interest of time, then I will move to the next agenda item. Agenda item 8, Andrea Bro is going to give us a quick update on their use of the TBEST software tool, as well as some future service enhancements along 3rd Street in Greenwood. So take it away, Andrea.
All right, thank you. If you can move on to the next slide. All right, next one. So we're just going to give a brief update. The Bend MPO helped fund some software support called TBEST for us. TBEST is an acronym that stands for the Transit Boarding Estimation and Simulating Tool. And basically, it allows us to tie in land use and census data and employment data into our transit route planning. Next slide. All right, so here's an example. Here's just a scenario for the northeast section. And basically, it's just to show you what TBEST can do for us. So we can actually put the route onto ArcGIS maps. We can create the bus stops. And most importantly, we're able now to share the shape files with the city of Bend as well as Deschutes County, who have much more robust GIS departments than we do. Next slide. All right, so what kind of sets TBEST apart? This is kind of just a snapshot of what, once we kind of put the route on the map, what is generated, okay? And so this is the land use analysis. Again, it's just a quick snapshot of where the route goes and the areas that we're hitting. So you can see we are hitting a lot of residential zones, all within the eastern portion of that route. We do hit some mild industrial as well as commercial. And basically it's generating the potential amount of trips within the market area once we put in that route. So it's giving us some data, whereas in previous years, it's more just based on verbal public feedback. We're now actually able to put some data behind what we're planning. Next slide. All right. So that was the land use portion. We also have some socioeconomic analysis that we're able to generate from this software. You've got minority, disabled, foreign-born, et cetera, your limited of English proficiency of population. So again, this helps us make sure that we're capturing, equitable population as well as meet some Title VI requirements. Next slide. All right. I don't expect you guys to look at this at a detailed level, but really what is valuable to us as operators is looking at some of those transit specific metrics, your headway, your round trip travel time, your average speed. Just to give you an idea, we use an average speed of 12 to 15 miles an hour in the world of transit, service hours and service miles. So this allows us on the operating side to see what makes sense. And the ones in green are basically the routes that exist right now. The red ones are just some testing that we're doing behind the scenes. So this is something that we go back to the operations supervisor and make sure what we're proposing to the public can actually make sense once we hit the road. Next slide. All right. So again, this is basically if you were to go into a particular route that we provided as a scenario, this is showing you all of those detailed informations kind of in one dashboard. So we're talking about, you know, the actual length of the trip, the cost, as well as all of the demographics, and then obviously all of the service information. And so this has been a pretty valuable tool. Up until recently, we did not have ArcGIS and TBEST, so thank you to the Bend MPO. We're able to put some weight behind these decisions. Next slide. All right. And so what we do at the end of presenting a scenario is we come and generate a report. And so the one we've kind of circled there in green is an example of the new Northeast route. We're estimating daily boardings, the population we're hitting, the employment, the headway right now we have budgeted for is a 45-minute route. And if you don't mind just moving to the next slide. It's just a continuation. It was too big to put in one slide of everything related to that route. So again, the number of trips, the boardings per hour, that also helps to make sure what we're proposing is pretty efficient and meets the benchmarks of fixed route transit. So we do try to get into somewhere between 8 and 11 boardings per service hour here in the city of Bend. Next slide. All right. So this is just kind of wrapping up what that software does for us. Again, it allows us to continue to have the most up-to-date land use modeling, the algorithms behind the software system, and then working with the actual TBEST company for when issues arrive or discrepancies in the data. And it allows us to just keep on top of how the system works. And the reason I just did a small presentation on this is because the Bend MPO board granted us $5,000 to continue for support of this system. So that's kind of a wrap up of TBEST. Did anybody have any questions on that?
Okay, that was way cool, I got to say.
All right. Excellent. We've got some tech nerds on the call. All right. And then I've just got us 2 more minutes on some updates on projects. All right. So we are going to be introducing services next year from the STIF funding. This year, we've been doing the planning efforts, the procurement of the vehicles, et cetera. And July 1 of next year, we anticipate that those services will actually come to light on the ground. Next slide. All right. Again, I don't expect you to read all of this, but if you have any detailed questions, please let me know. So this project in particular speaks to both of our master plan as well as the City of Bend TSP for increased frequency along the corridors here in the city. Okay. And so the runs highlighted in green speak to the new trips that will be generated from our service along Greenwood and Newport Ave. All right. And this speaks to Route 1 and Route 7. Sorry, I messed that up a little bit. Our Route 1 will dip into 3rd Street and then go on to Greenwood. And basically, from an operating perspective, we'll be using one bus to hit increased frequency along Greenwood Ave to St. Charles, and then increased frequency down to Walmart. And again, the premise behind this is that you start to gain choice ridership. People tend to rely less heavily on a schedule, and that is when you can gain the confidence of the population to just come out to the bus stop, and then within 15 minutes, we will be there. The next slide, Tyler, is just to show you where the other half of the transit frequency will go. That is going to be Route 3 out to the community college along Newport Ave. And then the other half of it will go to our most busy route, which is Route 4 to the Cascades Village Mall on North 3rd Street. And so again, we are procuring those vehicles. They are going to be smaller in length than vehicles past. And we hope to actually get this on the ground by July 1st of next year. And I think that's about it. Any questions? All right, thank you.
All right, Rick, do you want to try and just walk quickly through the few slides that we have for the North Interchange study?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Just go to them and I'll start talking.
Oops.
Okay, we're well into the North Interchange study. The blue area on the map roughly outlines the location that we're looking doing the investigation in. You can see it's adjacent to Juniper Ridge, just north of the urban growth boundary right now, between Bowery Lane and Fort Thompson Lane. Go to the next slide, please. This is the current sketch of one of the three options we're looking at. I think it's likely the most feasible of the options. It's a standard tight diamond intersection. You can see 18th Street coming in from the southeast. So it's a great separation over the railroad and then a great separation over the highway. Right now, we have a technical advisory committee later today and then a stakeholder advisory committee tomorrow. And we'll be looking at the three options that we're down to. We started out with about 9 options we looked at. And we'll, at this time, be introducing high-level cost estimates and then also potential for bike and ped connectivity off of 18th Street through the interchange area and connecting from roads on the west and to the south. And then also looking at access management, which is would be a fairly large undertaking with this idea. We hope to have this wrapped up by the end of the year. The consultant team's hard at work on it right now. One of the things that I think would draw people's attention to this a little bit more is in our final tech memo, we'll not just look at will an interchange work here and what are the challenges, but we'll start diving into what would an interchange at this location potentially do to travel patterns throughout the city of Bend system and even onto the county system. And honestly, should ODOT and the city invest in this improvement at this location? So are the benefits there to pursue it at this time? Again, it's a study, not an actual plan. So it's fairly high level, but we're trying to dig into those questions. I know several of you are involved on the technical advisory committee and some of you maybe on the stakeholder committee. But with that in mind, and I know our time is short, I'll open it up to see if anybody has questions.
Rick, do you want to talk to any of the other two options?
I can. One of the options is basically a similar design to what you would see there, except it has roundabouts at the ramp terminals, which gets rid of the necessity to have traffic signals at those locations. It would help with traffic flow. It scored well enough to be on the short list, but there are some issues with it. I would note the road off on the west side that shows connecting down to Bowery Lane. That would be in the future, potentially. We don't need that with the initial construction. We don't need a westerly connection at all. You want to show the other one, Tyler? This is the diverging diamond. I believe we do have one of these in the state now. They're rather unique if you haven't seen them before. It basically takes left turns out of the design. Both this one and the one you saw right before this are slightly more expensive. And when I say slightly, I mean a couple of $1 million more expensive. Will work, and they would all basically handle projected traffic flows for the next 40 to 50 years. That's really all I have at this point.
Does anybody have any questions of Rick? We can bring back a bigger update on this study at either our meeting in December or in January.
Tyler, this is Rick. I've got a couple questions for Rick, but I'll hold them off till Thursday afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
We are out of time. So we will skip the member roundtable. Just ask again if there's does anybody have any comments they'd like to share with the group before we conclude the meeting today?
I have a real quick one, and it kind of relates to Rick's presentation. Did ODOT postpone the midterm project at Cooley Road, 97?
I know of the infra project is still moving forward.
Okay, answers that question.
Well, I think it was wasn't it modified, Rick? There was one component that was removed. I remember something.
That made some headlines, but the actual decision to remove the grade separation at Cooley is about 2 years old.
Yeah.
At this point, it's just that it hit the light of day for the public that doesn't follow the project very closely, and it caused a little bit of a kerfuffle. Based on that, but that decision had been made a couple of years ago, just based on the available funding. The overall project was about 260 million, and they're working with about 100 million less than that right now.
133 million. Yeah.
All right. Our next TAC meeting, as we've mentioned a couple of times already, is scheduled for December 2nd. Again, I think with the time that we're going to have to devote to the STBG application review process, plan on that being a 2-hour meeting similar to today. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for the presentations. Everyone. They were good.
We're good.